Andrew Yang was confronted on the street because he, in order to appeal to certain segments of the New York voting base in his bid to become mayor of New York City, tweeted out something that actually was fairly consistent with his ignorance and potentially bigotry on the presidential campaign trail about Israel-Palestine. He essentially ignored the fact that Israel were the aggressors in this situation, and that Palestinian children were murdered, and the initial conflict started because Israeli forces went into Alaska Mosque and brutalized worshipers there, and so we already know why his statement was so problematic. Luckily, New Yorkers know it too. So he was in a campaign event in Astoria, and this is what some passersby had to say to him after he was done with his press conference.
So now, what do you have to say about your tweet directly to New Yorkers right now?
It's heartbreaking. All of this is happening in the Middle East.
It's heartbreaking, right?
It is. People are dying.
Do you condemn Israel for that? Do you condemn Israel for their unjust acts against the innocent Palestinians? Sir, I'm talking to him.
We got the publicist over here. We got
I'm talking to him.
We gotta go.
Don't say anything
Sir,
that's
you're
gonna fuck up
touching
your
me. Please
campaign.
don't
And
touch
that's
me.
why you don't have my vote, and I guarantee you don't have the vote of a lot of New Yorkers.
Sir, I have just one question.
So if you guys saw there, his campaign manager attempted to intervene, and I'm not sure if his campaign manager is the same guy who's that big tech investor, who Tusk, I believe is his last name.
So it's Tusk's, it's his campaign management team that's running it. Like Bradley Tusk is one guy, but he runs a whole political consulting firm is running.
Yeah, and they've represented police unions in the past, and Andrew Yang has ties to anti-BDS, anti-Palestine politicians who helped platform his campaign for mayor. But just how legendary those two awesome New Yorkers who just went up to him and demanded an answer from him there, and he had nothing to say. Yeah,
absolutely, good for them.
Matt, do you have that follow-up clip of or Brendan, excuse me, do you have that follow-up clip of Yang explaining why he was no longer going to an Astoria event, and it was because the organizers literally uninvited him for his comment on what was going on in the Mideast? I mean, you have that clip. I'll play that. Yeah, play this.
This is the press conference where they confronted him afterwards.
The organizers of the event decided it would be better if we did not attend, and we were happy to abide by their wishes.
Relating to what you tweeted about Israel?
I believe so. I'm not sure, but I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, really bad timing just on a political operative campaign. His campaign really messed up there, putting out that comment before going to Astoria, Queens. I mean,
to pass out food for a high holy day during Ramadan.
Right. I forgot about that one detail too. So you're going to an area with a very a large population of Arabic people, of Muslim people, people, and you're going to an event that is celebrating this event. I mean, are you kidding me?
I think that in Andrew Yang and the pitfall that Andrew Yang kind of fell into unnecessarily, you kind of see this tendency in liberals to really preoccupy themselves with seeming smart, even though they don't really know anything about world events, American history, geopolitics. And so instead they choose to outsource their morality and intellectual takes to just mainstream political sources. And in Andrew Yang is that I think you're seeing that population of liberals are now forced to come into conflict with more and more people who are not really indoctrinated into that world where that makes sense. More and more people who are being directly affected by what's going on in Palestine, more and more people who are, seeing the violence through social media and not through articles in the New York Times that are excusing it, saying that Gaza started it, and, doing a little bit more of the intellectual legwork themselves, doing a little bit of more moral legwork themselves. And a lot of people like Andrew Yang are just not used to actually having to answer a follow-up question about, okay, so do you think that both sides are doing it? Why do you think that? because that's just like a cheap, easy way to seem smart in their circles. It's a cheap, easy way to seem like you are educated about the complexities of the world by claiming everything is too complex to understand and there's no right or wrong answer, you know. And that's just also a way to avoid having to actually take a stance on anything that might require action in the future.
Right. I mean, this is honestly one of the most pandering statements I've ever seen too. I don't think people outside of New York might not know this, but Andrew Yang is courting a specific type of voter with this tweet on Israel. He actually got the endorsement of a block of conservative Jewish communities. And it's a big deal because they all vote basically in that block. So basically you have guarantees of many votes for Yang from these communities. And this was on top of people who have been running for mayor way longer than Yang, having been courting these groups for years and years and years, knowing they were going to run for mayor. So Andrew Yang just basically came in, stole that, and then he had to stand up and keep that. And this was basically totally 100% a statement put out to keep that sect of voters happy and voting for Andrew Yang. I don't think his people, first of all, I don't think he thought at all. I don't think he knows anything about this stuff. This was his campaign's total idea, obviously, but they also were not expecting the blowback, because I think a lot of these consultant types have their head in the sand as to where public opinion has gone on the issue of Israel and Palestine over just the past few years.
So to that point, then, like, who do you, between Bari Weiss and Andrew Yang, who do you think represents a more widely held belief in what they're sharing right now? I think it's Bari Weiss. Like,
oh no, yeah,
more people think like she does.
Oh yeah,
No,
well,
for
she's
sure,
an
yeah.
ideologue. I mean, the thing about Andrew Yang and why this is key to understand is Andrew Yang is running to be mayor of New York so he can run for president again. I mean, this is going to be relevant. He has higher ambitions than being mayor of a city that he doesn't know the difference between, I'm going to steal your tweet, Brendan, a Wegmans and a bodega. The guy doesn't have a real connection to New York City in any meaningful way. He wants to run for higher office, which is why questions, which it would already be relevant for any public figure, but it's especially relevant given the fact that I do believe that he has greater ambitions in this area. And I mentioned Tusk, the leader of the firm that manages Yang's campaign. He's referred to him in a complimentary way as an empty vessel who will basically do whatever. Pretty sure we have enough Democratic politicians who are empty vessels. Yang just comes in a fresher package for younger people, and he was smart enough to tack himself to a specific proposal that sounded really, really smart called UBI. He left out the fact that he would fund UBI by cutting from the rest of social programs. But the point is that he really is a standard weak Democrat. And that's what we're seeing as the days go on. He is the empty vessel that the Democratic consultants were so happy that he would be.
He openly said that. He said he was I forgot his exact phrasing, but it was something exactly analogous with an empty vessel. Like, he's just an open, like, you could put whatever you want on him and he'll consider it. Yeah, that's just who he is. But do people not remember how Andrew Yang got pushed into the mainstream? Like, he was just like a super fringe, like, every year there's people who say, like, 3 years before a presidential election that they're going to run, and they start a campaign and it goes nowhere. But he got pushed into the spotlight really early on due to alt-right internet weirdos. Like, he had an alt-right fan base. This has been written about and talked about. People were pushing him because he was a meme candidate on 4chan. And, and also that those conservative Jewish communities I mentioned who got his endorsement, those are Trump voters. Like, those aren't people who vote Democrat. Like, those are Trump voters who just endorsed Andrew Yang for mayor of New York. Like, this guy has some sort of appeal to the right. And, I think that's something that people sort of, I get swept under the rug, like, especially in the age of, post-Trump, where people, I feel like a lot of people are just, at least in, New York in general, are anti anything Republican or right-leaning. Andrew Yang, is where he is today, thanks to the promotion of far right groups online and offline now, still to this day, as we see with these Trump voters who endorsed him.
Well, and even in the campaign in 2019, he was asked if we should consider like not giving Israel so much money in hopes that they behave better. And he's like, I actually think we should give them more money for being loyal. And when you have loyal partnerships, you just should continue those things.
Yeah,
So I think like
yeah.
on this, like he's I mean, there's a reason like Bloomberg people are with Yang. Like, I don't know. This is who he is. He's a conservative. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily just the meme stuff. Like, I think it's because he actually holds these very conservative positions. And then like, that's why the meme guys like him.
Well, I think
that's
Bloomberg people just go with whoever's paying the big bucks, and Andrew Yang is the only one in this race who could afford to pay anything close to that. This race for mayor so far is very, I mean,
I don't know. I guess I just say like, I don't think this like recent thing I think is out of character for him. I think this is like who I've known Yang to be on, particularly Israel-Palestine, the entire time he's been in politics.
Right.
Like this is actually even, it's almost like that he's like walked it back is an improvement compared to where he was 2 years ago.
Right. And the depressing thing is that the person who's gaining on him, who actually may have a chance to defeat Yang, is probably worse than Yang, Eric Adams, who said he's going to bring back stop and frisk. You know, we're in for hopefully we get a good city council, even though even then there, you know, so much they can do along with what America can do to begin with in this city.